Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Authentic You podcast. And being authentic, there is thunder rumbling in the background as I am recording this. I don't know if you can hear this on the recording, but you can certainly see the lightning in the video. We are having crazy weather in the UK this week, really crazy weather. So today I want to talk about the happy secret to success. And something that you may not know about me is in 2018, I did a science experiment. And this wasn't because I was working for a university or anything like that, or writing a journal or, anything that any normal person doing an experiment would do. It's because I was challenged by a boss. Okay. So I had extensively studied positive psychology. I started studying positive psychology in 2014. I started applying it to my life. I started to see myself shift and change and grow in ways that I did not think were possible. I then started to apply it to my work. And I was having a conversation with my boss, and I was saying, this stuff is so transformative. This stuff changes lives, and this stuff could actually really impact on the bottom line in this business. So we need to get this out there. And him being him, and him also knowing that we worked with a lot of left brain people who needed logic, statistics, facts, science. We had some really creative right brain people there as well. He said to me, prove it. Come on, Gemma, if you're saying this could have totally put me into a place of stress and I could have completely but he was like, prove it. And I went, okay, then I will. And it felt like the time when I was told by my GCSE history teacher in year 10, you are going to fail. If you don't sort this out, if you don't sort out your coursework, you are going to fail. And I ended up getting a B for history. And on results day, I came up to him with my results and was like, told you so. You said I was going to fail. Or he said I was going to get a D. I can't remember, something like that. Felt like that anyway. When someone says prove it, I'm like, okay, I'll prove it. So what I did is I basically reached out to people, just put the word out there and said, I'm doing this experiment on these things that I know are backed by science to help well-being, to help productivity, to help creativity. And I know they even help the bottom line. Okay. So whether you want to improve your levels of happiness, your well-being, just be more productive, just basically be a better version of yourself and to have an up-leveled life and business, right? Who wants to take part in this experiment? And I was so fortunate to have 180 people, most of those who didn't even know me, come forward and say, yes, I would love to take part in this experiment. So what we did is we carried out every day for 21 days, 5 activities that have been shown through positive psychology research to make dramatic improvements in people's lives, in people's businesses. And the reason it was 21 days is because neuroscience shows it takes 21 days to build a habit in the brain. Okay, so the idea was that we would then build a habit through this process of doing it. So it wouldn't just be like, oh yeah, I feel happier as I'm doing it. It's like you would actually build sustainable happiness chemicals in your brain. So we did this experiment. I was also fortunate to have really honest people. So I had people who were like, well, I did this, I didn't do this. I found this really useful. I found this not so useful. And so I had loads of qualitative evidence from the things that people were saying as well. And because my boss had said, prove it, what I had to do was make this quantitative as well. So I went and found a whole host of psychological tests and measured the effects before and after the experiment. And now don't ask me how I did this because I couldn't remember how to do this now, but this wasn't far off my psychology degree. I still had the software. I ran it through a statistical program and found it had a statistically significant result. So overall, the transformation in that group was 15.3%. However, there were some positive outliers in that data. And this is kind of the bit I want to hone in on, because I know if you are here and you're watching and listening to this, you are likely one of those positive outliers. Now, I talk about the results of this experiment in my TEDx. So if you watch my TEDx, you can see like what the activities were. They're really simple activities like a gratitude practice, okay? So you can see the why behind it and the transformation in my life behind it. But what I don't talk about in that is the outliers. And I want to talk a bit about the outliers today. So what I found in my data was that there were positive outliers. So although on average, there was a 15.3% improvement across that group, what I found was these incredible positive outliers. And these people had around a 40% increase in scores from doing the experiment. This is dramatic. Think about how someone's life could be changed by a 40% increase. And this is what the qualitative feedback was telling me. My life has changed. I feel like a different person. People are saying I'm a different person. I'm so much happier. And this was my own experience of this stuff as well. This is my own experience. My life changed. I used to be somebody who was pretty unhappy, pretty dissatisfied, pretty overwhelmed and burnt out by life. And I used to cry. I used to cry most days. And I now realize that was because I was doing a highly stressful corporate job and I was autistic. So like part of that was this. But the thing about those 40% outliers that I found were these were highly sensitive women. Okay. So the reason that this stuff impacted on my life so heavily was because I was highly sensitive. I was neurodivergent. And that is what the outliers in my data were showing me, that this stuff is so potent and powerful. And this is why I call it the happier secret to success. Because what most people don't know. So people know about happiness, right? If you ask someone, what makes you happy? Like most people can have that conversation. Most people can answer that question. They might say like their children, their pets, their plants, like, what makes you happy? But it's not just happiness for happiness' sake. And this is what the research has shown us. And I'm going to take this to like another level as well, like the band, another level. I'm going to take this to another level as well, because at the point I did my TEDx in 2019, I talk about this purely on a scientific level and my scientific experiment. But I also kind of want to weave in the quantum and the energy piece with this as well. Okay. And the reason that this is the happier secret to success is because it is not about happiness for happiness' sake. Yeah, we all want to be happy, right? And we all want others to be happy, and we want everyone to live their best lives. But it's so much more. And here's what the research shows, and this has been done time and time again in brain scanners, is that when you can create happiness hormones in the brain, it enables you to be more productive, more creative, on average make 26% more sales in business. 26%, that's huge. To impact on the bottom line through being happier by 26%. Like, this work is transformative. So what they have found in science, which I replicated in my experiment, I didn't have any brain scanners. I would have liked a brain scanner, please, next time, is that when you flood the brain with happiness hormones, the amygdala, which is the fight or flight center at the base of the spine, the base of the skull, sorry, the amygdala starts to shrink down in size. So the fight flight center becomes less reactive. The fight flight center of a sensitive person, a neurodivergent person, has so many more sensory receptors in the brain, right? So we're picking up more things in the environment. So if we can flood the brain with happiness and shrink that area down, it's going to become less reactive. And this is what happened for me. This is why I found that these positive emotion inducing practices helped me to not only function, but actually flourish, to have a successful career, to leave that and build a successful business. And of course, I struggled at times. I ended up in burnout at times, as I sort of to navigate, like, what is it that I need? But underlying all of that was a positive resilience that held me through. And I know this has held me through so many things, so many life changes from, having to move several times, my divorce, my separation, leaving the home that I lived in, having to leave my last home. This has led me through so many things. And this is why, because those happiness hormones, I'm sure most of you've heard of dopamine, right? And dopamine gets a bit of a bad rap. Dopamine gets a bit of a bad rap because, scrolling and caffeine and, like there can be an unhealthy addiction with dopamine. But the thing is, the brain actually needs it. The brain actually needs it to shut down the fight or flight center. It's more about where we access that, where we get that from. And also, there is a slight difference with sex with this as well. So men generally need more dopamine because if you think about it, the kind of inbuilt mechanism, the hunter-gatherer mechanism to, follow an object, to hunt, to follow an object, okay, that gives them that reward, it gives them that dopamine, whereas women are naturally caregivers, nurturers, and women actually need more oxytocin to regulate, okay? So if we find ways to bring these happiness chemicals in, so the dopamine, the oxytocin, the endorphins, which we get from things like exercise, and the other one, which is not really heard of that often, is norepinephrine. Like, that is something that not many people talk about, right? We don't hear that in conversation. We hear about oxytocin, like the cuddle hormone, like even just me doing this right now, okay? I just encourage you to just do this right now. It's creating that oxytocin in the body, that feeling of cozy, okay? So when we can do things that make us happy, that use our strengths, that light us up, we have all these incredible effects on the brain. Right. Taking this to the next level above what I talked about in my TEDx. Who here, raise your hand if you have a vision or a dream that you have that doesn't feel good. Yeah, see, I bet nobody raised their hand, yeah? You don't have a vision that doesn't feel good. It wouldn't be your dream, it wouldn't be your vision if it didn't feel good. So by increasing these happiness chemicals in the brain, in the body, we start to feel these feel-good feelings. And your future vision, dream, goal, which is completely authentic to you, it feels good, right? So the more we leverage this happiness secret, the more we become a vibrational match for that thing. And I will just caveat this here because this is not about light washing. This is not about, oh, it's all 100% love and light only, right? With this, which we call like the pleasure queen archetype, right? Of like the nourishment, the happiness, the real nourished leader, okay, comes the shadow queen, comes the allowing that space for somatic release, allowing that space for those perceived negative emotions, right? And allowing that broad spectrum. But this is about upping the ups. And the more we up the ups, for want of a better word, the more we become a frequency match for that vision, because your vision feels good. And remember, in the quantum field, the higher dimensional energies, the quantum field does not recognize a specific thing. It recognizes coherence. And the best way to get into a coherent state with what it is that you're wanting to create is through that feeling and through that frequency. So positive psychology isn't just a scientific, neuroscientific concept, or this is great for well-being or mental health, which it is. It is so much more. It is the ability to shift timelines. And this is one of the secrets to how I shifted to what was my 10-year vision in just 2 years. So I literally wrote in my journal, in 10 years' time, I'm going to be living by the sea. I'm going to be so in love. I'm going to walk my dogs on the beach. 2 years later, I was walking my dogs on the beach at my seaside home, and I suddenly went, this was my 10-year vision. I've done it in 2 years. And so this was one of those secrets to how I did that, because I aligned with the frequency of that version of me. And this is scientific, like not just on a neuroscience level, but also on a quantum physics level, because it's coherence. Atoms bond to similar atoms. What you become coherent with is what you bring into your reality, is what you create. So this is why we see when people start to go on these journeys to their authentic selves, firstly, it's like, who am I? Like when I've moved through and from the people pleasing, and I've moved, away from the masking, and I'm starting to like come back to myself, and I get to understand who I am, then we've unraveled all the layers, and we come back to who we are authentically. And then this is where we then start to see on this journey, you start to attract your aligned tribe. You start to attract your aligned clients. You start to attract an aligned relationship, and all the things, or those around you shift to meet you there, because it is all simply about coherence. So if you are coherent with what feels good, if you are coherent with gratitude. So recently in Main Character May, this is something we did as part of this program. We did a gratitude rampage. Like, how many things can you be grateful for? I did this at an event once, and kudos to James, who stood up in the audience and thought of 60, 70 things that he just reeled off that he was grateful for, because he'd been practicing it, right? So it doesn't have to be that many. It can be 3, it can be 10. But when you do this, when you become coherent with these high vibrational emotions like gratitude, then the atoms in your reality bond to your atoms, and this is what brings things into your space, into your reality. Okay, so this is not just about happiness. This is about working with a science and quantum based approach to literally becoming your most authentic self, becoming your best self. And this will be in a way that is completely authentic to you. Because, and something I want to caveat here is, there's a lot of people on the internet now talking about positive psychology. It's become a bit of a buzzword, right? We know it creates results. Lots of people talking about it. And I have to say, and apologies, men, but there's a lot of men on the internet saying you have to do this a certain way. You get up at, if you get up at 4 a.m. and you go for a run, and then you do journaling, and then you write down your gratitudes, then this is going to change your life, and you have to do this in a set process. what I will say to you is, you know what is right for you. You know what feels like a sacred yes and a sacred no for you in your body. If you don't, reach out to me. Like, this is what I can support you with, okay? Because it is those sacred yes things that actually bring you joy. So if you're listening to the bro marketer who's saying you must get up at 4 and go for a run, and your body's like, no, like, I don't want to do that. That's not how I want to do my movement. I want to have a dance in the kitchen. I want to dance and to sing into my hairbrush. I want to do yoga. Like, you know what is right for you. You know what lights you up. You know what your strengths are. You know what you're good at. And it is following this in a way that works for you, because there's lots of things out there saying, like, you must do things this specific way. That is actually goes against the science, because the science shows that when we give people the opportunity to have autonomy and to be the authority, if we're in this space like we are right now, where I say to you, like, you know what's best for you. If I was coaching you right now and I said, what feels right for you? And then you stopped and you considered and you explored that, that actually opens up the brain, actually opens up the brain to possibilities. Sometimes having that witnessing in that, like, have it being witnessed by a coach in that way, having that witnessing of someone asking you that can just open up the brain in a way that it wasn't before. But if I said, you have to do these things in this specific way, your brain would close down. Your fight flight center would probably switch on. You'd see me as a threat, even subconsciously, right? You might consciously be going, oh, she's got something useful to say. I should listen to this. But subconsciously, the brain is going, hang on, I'm being told what to do here. This is not safe. I don't have freedom. And the brain shuts down. So we just also have to be just in this space of knowing that we are the authority and knowing that others are the authority, and how we hold through this space. And I could go into tangents on this, and this is what Cosmic Coach is all about, which is kind of how you're going to, how you're going to work through this more deeply with me, or perhaps experience this yourself with a one-to-one with me. But this is life-changing stuff. Okay. And in particular, right now, this is so important because of what we're moving through on the planet right now. Because the other thing about this happier secret is that it creates resilience. So these practices to create daily joy in your life, whatever that looks like for you, the dance, the gratitude practice, the whatever creates joy for you, like in a really nourishing, sustainable way for you daily, this is like the roots of the tree. So what I've seen in spiritual spaces as well is that if we have these practices in place, the roots of the tree are deeply in the ground. And I talk about the tree in Hurricane Katrina in my TEDx. I'm sure most of you have heard that story, the amazing story about Hurricane Katrina. The roots go deeply into the ground. And what happens when a tree root goes deeply, deeply, deeply into the ground? It connects with other tree roots and it holds the tree up. So when the storm comes, as it's thundering, when the storm comes, the tree can sway with the storm because the roots are nicely in the ground. Okay, so it is a resilience practice which enables you to then flow with life more easily. And the branches, and I'm being so expressive in my hands right now for anyone watching, anyone not watching, listening to the audio. The branches of the tree can reach up even higher. It can grow even taller if the roots are in the ground. And as the energy on the planet like gets more fiery, gets more shaken up, which it really has been the last few months, right? What we can do is more human flourishing, more positive emotions, which enable those branches to grow even higher. Okay. So if this is calling you, this is the underpinning practices that we are doing this month in Quantum Queen. And I am running a retreat for the solstice, because the solstice is a very important time in this energetic shift, on the 24th of June. So if you are watching or listening to this before the 24th of June, and also if you're somebody that loves to come to my in-person retreats, but you don't want to wait until September, because September is the next opportunity to do that, then come along and join us in the solstice retreat. We're going to be doing some breath work to release, to move things through, to have that somatic practice. And we're going to be tuning into this happier secret to align you to the best version of yourself, your best life, your best business, and to truly create that grounded success for you. To come along and have a space where you can be held in that space of being completely you, that you are the authority, to be safely held in that, who you authentically are. And this is why I'm doing the online retreat. So that is on the 24th of June. There will be a replay if you can't make it live. So if you're listening to this after then, you'll still be able to access that in Quantum Queen, along with, there's over £3,000 worth of resources in Quantum Queen currently, which you get for just £44 when you join us. There are breathwork sessions, activations, meditations, trainings in there on masculine and feminine, energetics, energy clearing. There's magic money. There's so much in there. There's the workshop that created the 6 mini lottery wins for our ladies. You get access to all that, as well as access to the retreat. And if you missed out on Main Character May, the replays of the calls of Main Character May are also in there as well. So I'll pop the details below to come and join us on the retreat. I can't wait to see you there. And I'd love for you to pop on socials, add this to your stories, and share how this resonated for you today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and lots of love the week ahead.